So the first person I'm going to review is Charlene Sketch, and I really like their concepts and compositions. They seem to like to experiment with lots of different techniques, and they ask for feedback on color, so that's what I'll focus on. So let's take a look at her latest drawing. So I picked the colors from her drawing already, and I noticed that the colors at the top three colors, are very bright and highly saturated, whereas the colors at the bottom that make up most of the drawing are very desaturated and warm. And so it just doesn't seem super cohesive to have these highly saturated colors mixed in with these very desaturated colors. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with the hue, saturation, and brightness setting and the color balance setting on Procreate, and just mess with that a little bit on the book and the water glass to see if I can maybe warm it up and desaturate it a little bit so that the drawing seems a little bit more cohesive. So on the left you have the before, and on the right you have the after. Hopefully you can see the small difference that makes. Next I'm going to review Sleepy Dreamka. I really like how this person has really clean line art and seems to have a good sense of line weight and balance. This person asked for some tips on anatomy, and so my tips for anatomy are going to be to reference real life and do lots of figure drawing, which is probably something that you have heard before, but there's a reason that people keep on saying it, is because that's really the only way to improve your anatomy. I always use reference photos, even now, and if I can't find one, I'll take a picture of myself. So, reference photos. So what I did was I took this drawing and I looked for some reference photos on Pinterest that had a similar wave pose. And what I'm doing now is I'm going to basically try to break down the body into simple shapes, and I'm trying to sketch quickly to capture like the essence of the pose with some sense of like balance and movement. So I'm not really using like straight lines. But I'm also not doing like curved lines. I'm kind of going with the natural flow that your wrist might make, like kind of those types of sketches. I'm not sure if that makes sense. Anyway, so after I have that baseline, then I can start adding in some more details to create a final sketch. And so here you have the before and after. So the last person I'm going to review is Ruby.Creates, who asked if I could help her create a more painterly style that was also visually interesting. And I noticed that this person already has a very painterly style, but I think what can push it a little bit farther is to understand values a little bit better. So I'm going to do that with a paint over on this example of this girl. I really like the expression that this girl has, but at the moment it looks a little bit flat, and the reason that it's looking a little bit flat, even though there's a ton of beautiful rendering, is because some of the value placements are not quite right in conveying light and shadow. So for example, in the hair there's a bunch of dark red that is equally dispersed throughout the hair, as well as bright oranges and yellows. And to communicate that like light is coming in from the right side, for example, the left side of her head is going to be a lot darker. There's also some shadows that are missing that are cast shadows, which is like something blocking the light from hitting something else. So there should be a cast shadow under her chin and where the hair is covering the eye. That will make it feel like the hair is really like on top of the face rather than in the same plane as the face. So I'm also playing around with lightening the background because it's a little bit unclear if, like right now it looks a little bit like the head is floating, and that's because the color of the shirt that the girl is wearing is basically the same value as the background. And so by lightening the background and darkening the
shirt a little bit, we can clearly define what's in the foreground and what's in the background. So here is my paint over version. I hope you found it helpful. And if this was a video style that you would like to see again, please let me know. If you want to be reviewed or critiqued in one of my future videos, go follow me on Instagram. I'll also link to all of the artists that were featured in this video in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.